Okay, welcome everyone to our Surf Lakes industry summary. This is just a quick webinar to explain to everybody some of the key points of difference between Surf Lakes, our sustainable competitive advantages, and some of the advantages we have over other wave pool technologies. It's been a common question we've had throughout this capital raising process from investors. On today's webinar, we've got Aaron Trevis, founder and CEO.
Hey guys.
Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
And also Lewis Glynn, who's our Chief Operating Officer and Head of Surf Lakes Capricorn Coast.
Hello. Thanks.
All right, we'll go through this about probably 10 to 15 minutes, and hopefully it'll give you a better understanding of why we are so confident with Surf Lakes and why we believe it's the best wave pool tech out there. But first, let's start sort of top down, thinking about what the surf industry is going to be looking like in the next sort of 10 years or so. Our view is that there's going to be about 1,000 wave pool surf parks all around the world. At the moment, there's only about 7 or 8 that are actually open. But, you know, we're at the start of a whole new industry, and we believe that surf parks are going to become the new ski resorts. If you think about ski resorts at the moment, globally there's about 6,000, but in the USA alone, there's 500 ski resorts. We think that, there may be that number of surf parks in the future, but definitely there should be around 1,000 in the next 10 years. That's where this number is. It's $100 billion industry. If you think about how much it costs to build a surf park and how much revenue they can actually generate, and the fact that you can put them in cities next to populations, and you don't need a mountain to actually stick them there, it could be really massive. And we believe Surf Lakes has a potential to be the category king in this sector and also compete in terms of activity for individuals that are thinking about going and doing outdoor recreational activities, whether they're thinking about theme parks or golf courses or going skiing. Surfing, if they're everywhere, will become a mainstream type of sport. So we go to the next slide. And we honestly believe that we can be a significant player. Out of those 1,000, we could probably have 50 to 100 of those wave pools. Not all of them, but definitely a big percentage of them. So I'll hand it over to Aaron now, the CEO, who will talk about us and some of the competitors and the timelines of this industry and how things are getting started.
Yeah, thanks, Reuben. It's been interesting talking to people about, the time to get to waves and why they haven't proliferated all over the world. And I think it's important to touch on the fact that these companies have been at it for some time. And we look at Wavegarden, started in 2005, thereabouts. First public wave shown in about 2010. They had their 2 lagoon technologies at Snowdonia and Enland, which, no longer operating, but then got into the Cove, some years later. And Kelly Slater's started at a similar time, 2006. They got their first waves, funded the first one themselves, and they've got the second one open now. American Wave Machines, as a leadership team, have been around for some time, as have Endless Surfers, based by Whitewater Group in Canada, and then Surf Like you got Tom Lockerfeld, who've been around. So all of these guys have been at it various forms for some years. The bottom 3 there are all the pneumatic technology. Kelly Slater's has their big rail wedge, if you like, and Wavegarden have electro over mechanical, and we've got pneumatic over hydraulic, very unique. So ours is, in a sense, a category of its own. Kelly's is in a category of its own. We've just highlighted there that we're, about to get started on our first commercial build with a rollout of projects. In fairness, Endless Surf, Surflock, they've all got a rollout of projects as well, which probably should highlight here. But it just means there's a lot of parks coming up, and we want to talk about, the fact that we're coming into that commercial phase now, catching up, even though we started 10 years after some of the others. And we'll touch on the advantages of our technology. And one of the big ones is the productivity and size of waves. So if you look at this slide, it's a little busy, but just to highlight that the x-axis goes out to wave size. So most of the other technologies max out at, 7.5 feet face. We can go up over 9 feet with ours. In terms of
wave face height.
Face height, yeah, you're right. So the old argument about wave height, but if we stick to face height, we're okay. In terms of surfers in the water at any one time, Wavegarden seem to do 50 at best. All the other technologies are, 10, 12, 24. I'm not aware of any other technology at this stage that can have 50 surfers in the water. our technology is designed to have 200 surfers in the water because we're effectively 4 surf parks in one when you look at the number of waves that we're producing. So we'll contract up to 2,000 rides an hour. In theory, the machine can do more, but we'll max it out there. So you can see that there's an immediate advantage, which means that you can either charge less and have the same revenue or charge more and have much more revenue. And it also gives you a lot more people involved in all of the other activities around the park. So it's a really key measure. And Lewis is just going to talk about, you know, the CAPEX and build and that value comparison.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Look, in my background is in land property development and construction, it's always important to get a hold of a metric that's important for managing your CAPEX, which also is a bit of an indication into how much pressure you're going to put on that business in OPEX. So in the surf park scenario, one I like to use is how many surfers can you get in the water per hour per $1 million of CAPEX? So really what you're saying is, how efficient is it to build and how many people can you get in? It's obviously important because it's going to, the more you can get per million of CAPEX, the more potential surf revenue, but then you've got more potential perimeter revenue and other revenues. And it also links to other efficiencies. So when we look at other technologies out there, it's quite hard to get a real number on how much things cost, but we're seeing or indicating, or at least pretty confident that there's at least 2, maybe 3, 4 times the efficiency that a surf lake gets from some of the other technologies from what we've seen published. So that just reduces that perhaps burden that you may need a high occupancy, but it just also opens you up to those peak days to get more in. And I'll explain a bit more on why I think that's quite important as well with where the industry's going.
Yeah.
Surface per acre is another, it's not everything. It's not, you know, it's not cost per acre. It's not quality of waves per surfer. But it is a good metric that we hear get bandied around a lot of, well, how many surfers can you get per acre of your wave pool or surf lake? And this graph just shows how surf lakes, the XL and a smaller compact model, how we believe they compare to other technologies out there.
Yeah. I think for a lot of developers, they try to work things out per, you know, square foot or square meter in the metric world as a comparable measure. And so this is a good one in that sense, that pound for pound, it's far more. That's
it. You look at build cost per square foot or square meter, and that's sort of what we we're doing in the previous slide. And then you look at, you know, maybe number of net saleable area per apartment. You know, how many square feet can you actually sell per apartment? So that's where you get like how many surfers are you going to get in per acre of square foot, because there's only so much you can do with the site.
That's right.
But we do get a lot of people looking at sites and thinking, you know, one or other of those metrics is the most important. But I'd certainly say I'd be leaning towards the CAPEX per surfer as a starting point, and the other one is a litmus test.
So this list here is really getting more granular into the different elements of different surf parks. So we've compared our XL, our compact, versus various other technologies across a range of measures. So to get into the granularity of it, starting with maximum wave production or number of surfers in the water, because this is really a key measure of profit, which then drives those comparisons of number of surfers per acre or surfers per CAPEX anyway. And it
also drives incremental spend. So if you can have more surfers in the water, more people coming to the surf park, spending time there, every person, every minute or every hour that every human's within in the facility, that then extrapolates into incremental spend, which is, you know, burgers, fries, beers, just hanging around buying merchandise and so on. Yes. So you really want to cram as many humans into the surf park as possible for the longest period, and then you can make the most on the perimeter. So that's also important as well.
Well, that's it. And I mean, even if we only assume the ratio of one visitor non-surfer per surfer, that means that our advantage is multiplied, because, you know, if someone brings a friend, brings a spouse, brings a child each time, you can fit more of those in. So it's an even bigger multiplier, actually, Reuben, on that basis. And you know, we can do this because if you look at our number of main waves, we have 8, whether it's the small or large, compared to 1 to 4 of the others, which is the best. The learner zones is really key. Learning to surf, because 99% of the world don't yet do it, but want to. This is a major factor. So the fact that we can have 4 different learner zones, 4 different instructors going at the one time, is a great measure of the future growth as well as the ability to progress through. This one's really important as well, the simultaneous variety. So it means if we have 5 different levels of waves, that means we're accessing the entire surfing market from beginners to pros who can all be there at the same time. So you don't have to allocate a certain session or a certain time for different skills. They can all be there, which then feeds into then those other incremental spends and other visitors as well, because it's easier to schedule a session or a morning or a day that can fit everyone's ability. That is a big deal.
Just to explain, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these are the competing technologies.
Yes.
Just if you wanted to make, so we're just comparing what our tech can do compared to what other competing technologies can actually do.
And what we've done here is highlight in green which technology is the leader in that particular factor. So you can see so far we're all green. The next one was offshore, which is a measure of wave quality, right? If it doesn't matter which way the wind's going, 360 degrees, you can't beat that. Whereas some of the others, it's only half the time, half the wind direction, or in one case, a little more. The next one is ride length. So I've put in there 10 seconds minimum because that's really what you want. And let's assume all the parks can do that. There's one tech, which is an obvious one, that can do long rides, but ours are more than adequate, whichever one you use. So that one's a bit of an environmental factor. The wave size, though, is really important. In a sense, it goes a little bit with wave quality, that if you can have something which is overhead, it's a really exciting experience. Now, we can run small, medium, or large, but we can get up to 9-foot faces. And even the compact one will be, 7 to 9 as well. So, yeah, that's a big measure and becomes more important as people progress. And as the Olympics becomes more accessible and you have surf skate type events in the Olympics where you have to skate and surf, that size is a big deal for the excitement of the event, because it's hard to see the Olympics getting excited with armpit high waves. You'd really want something which is a bit more powerful and realistic. The other measure here is meters or feet of beachfront land. So what you're doing to create development potential. Ours, we believe, leads that because of the 1/2 mile of beachfront land around the XL. And to Lewis's point before, a lot of that translates into CAPEX per surfer. We're in the 250,000 to 350,000 per surfer, whereas others are 1 mil to 5 mil in CAPEX. So that efficiency is there. And all that means is if you wanted to operate at a lower, more affordable price, we can, whereas many of the others can't, or it's very difficult for them to do that profitably as well. So feeds a lot of advantages through that. And then touching on wave quality, the main reason to visit. Sorry, Reuben.
I was just going to make another point. If you go back a slide.
Sure.
Just on the actual beachfront.
Yes.
Because a lot of I suppose at the moment, because the industry is still sort of new, you might think a wave pool developer will try and build, just to get a wave pool in, to build the smallest one possible, to keep the cost down and so on. But smaller wave pools have less people throughput. They can't service as bigger, market in terms of if you're trying to put a property development or a hotel or apartments around it. A smaller wave pool making less waves can only service a small number of people.
Yeah.
But if you look on if you think about real estate, if you were to say to somebody or a developer, how much Bondi Beach do you want in your real estate development? They're not going to say, well, as little as possible, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to say, well, give me the most amount of Bondi Beach possible, because every meter of Bondi Beach, I can extract real estate value from that. Yes. I can put shops, hotels, restaurants, just beach volleyball, sunbathing, barbecue areas, parks, playgrounds for kids. You want as much beachfront as possible. And what we're actually, and Lewis, you might want to touch on this, but a lot of our licensee partners who are planning these are trying to maximise the beachfront perimeter by making the lake bigger or adding corners, to the lake, so they get more Bondi beachfront, and that's just an example there.
Yeah.
So
That's it. And
it's not about minimising the lake and just whacking a little wave pool in there. It's about actually maximising the wave pool, maximising the perimeter, and trying to make as much on the real estate and incremental spend as you possibly can.
That's it, Reuben. Access to the amenity. And if you look at, maybe, I know I like to lean on the ski example, Whistler Mountain, for example, there's 20,000 pillows within 500 meters of a ski run. So it shows the value of being at the amenity. And if you take skiing as a comparison, which I like to do, it's taking an extreme sport and bringing it to the people in a controlled environment. And Whistler alone has 70,000 ski lift capacity per hour. So 70,000 per hour. We're talking about 2,000 per hour. So it's still small fry. That's why we think the industry's got a long way to go. But us and Surf Lakes having that ability to have 4 times the throughput, 4 times the beachfront, all of these things, that's why it's important, and that's why we get a lot of developers looking at models and mock-ups like this to really create that sustainable ecosystem around the development, where you've got a good amount of waterside activity to balance with the other amenities and surfing and other activities around the lake.
Nice.
Yeah.
And look, just touching on this slide to finish off, the wave quality, when surveys from Surf Park Central and others, this is the main reason people visit, and the feedback that we have from everyone that surfed ours versus others rave about the ocean-like experience, the power of these perfect waves, the overhead barrels. And so it's
the barrel and the wave face quality as well.
Yeah,
I think it's not only will draw people in, but it will get people coming back again and again.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the equivalent of an Indonesian surf trip in many cases. And all of that can be done efficiently, as we talk about the energy per ride here as well. We're on par with the best in terms of energy. So there's a lot of advantages there, which are pretty obvious. For us now, it's about getting parks funded and open. And so this is why we're out raising the capital. So just to touch on the investment pathway here, right now we've got 9 mil that we're raising out of this. We've already got 3 of that subscribed. So there's about 6 mil left here. We're in discussion with groups for debt and equity for the Capricorn Coast, which is an upgrade of our existing facility. And then we've got the Riverside County, Austin, Texas. So these parks are very close to approval. There's investment being soft circled for that equity part. And then we know that once the first one's open, the debt pieces is already taken care of, because we've got so many people saying they want to be second, third, and fourth, because once they see one open, it's going to cascade. And so it's a very exciting phase. But those coming in now are at the beginning of this incredible journey, really.
And just off the heels of the Olympics, the Riverside County location is in Los Angeles. So with the LA Olympics coming up, all the hype around that, whether or not the surfing is going to be held in the wave pool, I don't think it will be. But as a training facility, and for all the surf teams from around the world to fly into Surf Lakes in LA and actually surf there and train there, I mean, that's just the value on that is massive.
That's right.
So that's 4 years away.
No, it is a good backup spot. And what's interesting,
not a bad backup.
Having surfed down here a lot, there's not a lot of barrels that I see on the coast, unless they're just keeping them away from me.
You're just dodging them, Aaron, I think.
Is that what it is? Yeah. If I look behind me, I might see more, right? So, but yeah, you look at this wave here with Occy here, and we've seen him get 7-second barrels on the left and Dingo 7-second barrels on the right. They're world-class waves. So it needs to happen. But look, that covers us for this one. We just want to explain in more detail some of those advantages, so you can see why we're excited, why our partners are excited, and why investors are coming in now. So we encourage you to get involved.
Yeah, and if you have any questions around anything you've seen on the presentation, just email us and we'll get them answered.